watching another episode of 28 Days of Color presented by S.T.E.A.M Engine Academy. Today's episode, number 18, is Color in Transportation, and we're going to speak with Alano McNeil, a flight attendant for a European airline, and Gregory Hogg, a driver for Muni, our own bus system in San Francisco, California. Then we'll have the history of the Freedom Riders and find out the challenges they faced on the road. Stay tuned. Welcome back to 28 Days of Color, presented by S.T.E.A.M Engine Academy. Today's topic is color in transportation, and we're here with Malik Hogg to tell us about his role in transportation in San Francisco, California. Hi, Malik. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for being here. Now, tell us, how long have you been in transportation, and who are you working for?
I've been in transportation for 7 years. I work in San Francisco with SFMTA, which is the San Francisco Municipal Transit Association, also known as Muni.
Awesome. And what aspect of your job do you enjoy, and what parts are challenging?
I would say everything is challenging. The job is not for everybody. Living and working in San Francisco, it's a big melting pot. You get all types of people, some good, some bad. The part I like about the job is I'm not stuck at a desk. I'm out, I'm free, I'm doing my own thing. I don't have anybody looking over my shoulder. In a sense, maybe I do because I've got cameras on the bus watching me, but It is what it is.
And you've got a great view back there. I wish I was there. It looks sunny too.
It is very sunny today.
So how has the pandemic impacted your career and transportation in general?
It's been tough. Ridership is at an all-time low. We've kind of got the threat and possibility of layoffs, which nobody wants. I feel like as my seniority, I have a little bit of time under my belt, so I think I'm okay with that. We're only allowed to have 20 people on the bus at one time, which is about a quarter of what we would normally have. And it's a line. There's a lot of lines not running. It's a lot slower right now, but we're making do with what we can.
Making do. That sounds like what we've been doing for the past year and more. I understand. And so what do you think is significant about the Black community having access to transportation?
It's very important. It's very important. There's a lot of things in the city, a lot of areas that have things that the Black community doesn't. And unfortunately, we need transportation to get to those parts of the city.
Right. And what do you think the industry as a whole, transportation, what can they do to better support those communities that are underserved?
Really just need to serve all of the communities equally, which me being a transit operator in the city, I can tell you firsthand that doesn't happen. There's been a lot of attempts to improve that situation, but it's just not working how it should be.
We've got quite a laundry list and grocery list to work out here in the States, so we do need to get that on there too. And, with the pandemic, there's been some ups and some downs. Some are home with their kids and they're finding silver linings. What's been a silver lining for you in this pandemic?
Really just been a blessing that I still have a job that I can come to. Waking up in the morning, coming to work. Really the highlight of my day is getting back home to see my kids waiting for me. My oldest son has been doing distance learning pretty much since March. It's a little hard for him, but he's working through it.
That has been such a process for all of our students, and I commend you on your efforts because I know it takes a lot of parent support to get that done. I know it does. And with that, also for yourself, what are some pastimes and hobbies that you enjoy in your time off? What can you do to help relax in this pandemic?
Anything car related. I'm a car guy, so I'm always either buying parts, adding parts to one of my cars. But lately we've been doing a lot of bike riding. Every Sunday, me and a bunch of my friends, we all get our sons together Sunday morning. We've been doing it for about 2 months now, and we just get out and ride bikes, just basically to get exercise, to get fresh air, to get the kids off the Xbox for a little bit, and just to get out of the house and be active and be doing something.
Yes, I hear that. The Xbox is causing problems sometimes. We've got to keep it moving. And
I will say to get me off the Xbox too.
Right. I mean, I'm Netflixing on it, so I suppose I need to take a break as well. I understand what you mean. And then when it comes to kind of, finishing up our conversation here, what are some things you want the public to know about the workers of transportation? What can we do to support you and us getting around?
Just realize that we're people. We're human. It was a little iffy in the beginning because I felt like I didn't really want to be around people when the pandemic first hit. I didn't know how things were going to work out. Wasn't sure how it was going to go as far as, things being contagious and stuff like that. But we're people too. I have to get out there every day. I have to put my mask on. The only reason I'm not wearing it now is because I have nobody around me. But I have to worry every day. Am I going to catch COVID and bring it home to my family? So I'm really diligent about washing my hands and keeping my body and clothes and everything clean.
Yeah. And we want to wish that for you too, that you stay healthy, that you stay safe, and that your passengers are respectful of your rules on that bus and maintaining cleanliness, hygiene, and 6 feet. And I appreciate you taking out your time in the middle of your workday. I know you've got like a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait for our students to see this and for them to remember that they need to be kind to our essential workers, and you are essential.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you soon. Freedom Riders were civil rights activists who rode interstate buses into the segregated southern United States in 1961 and in subsequent years to challenge the non-enforcement of the United States Supreme Court decisions from Morgan versus Virginia in 1946 and Boynton versus Virginia in 1960, which ruled that segregated public buses were unconstitutional. The southern states had ignored the rulings and the federal government did nothing to enforce them. The first Freedom Ride left Washington, D.C. on May 4th, 1961, and was scheduled to arrive in New Orleans on May 17th. Boynton outlawed racial segregation in the restaurants and waiting rooms in terminals serving buses that crossed state lines. 5 years prior to the Boynton ruling, the Interstate Commerce Commission, the ICC, had issued a ruling in Sarah Keys versus Carolina Coach Company 55 that had explicitly denounced Plessy versus Ferguson 1896 doctrine of separate but equal in interstate bus travel. The ICC failed to enforce its ruling, and Jim Crow travel laws remained in force throughout the South. The Freedom Riders challenged this status quo by riding interstate buses in the South in mixed racial groups to challenge local laws or customs that enforce segregation in seating. The Freedom Rides and the violent reactions they provoked bolstered the credibility of the American Civil Rights Movement. They called national attention to the disregard for the federal law and the local violence used to enforce segregation in the southern United States. Police arrested riders for trespassing, unlawful assembly, violating state and local Jim Crow laws, and other alleged offenses, but often they first let white mobs attack them without intervention. The Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, sponsored most of the subsequent Freedom Rides, but some were also organized by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. The Freedom Rides, beginning in 1960, followed dramatic sit-ins against segregated lunch counters conducted by students and youth throughout the South, and boycotts of retail establishments that maintained segregated facilities. The Supreme Court's decision in Boynton supported the right of interstate travelers to disregard local segregation ordinances. Southern, local, and state police considered the actions of the Freedom Riders to be criminal and arrested them in some locations. In some localities, such as Birmingham, Alabama, the police cooperated with the Ku Klux Klan chapters and other white people opposing the actions and allowed mobs to attack the riders. The Freedom Riders were inspired by the 1947 Journey of Reconciliation led by Bayard Rustin and George Hauser, and co-sponsored by the Fellowship of Reconciliation and then fledgling Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. Like the Freedom Rides of 1961, the Journey of Reconciliation was intended to test an earlier Supreme Court ruling that banned racial discrimination in interstate travel. Rustin, Igal Rudenko, Joe Fellman, and Andrew Johnson were arrested and sentenced to serve on a chain gang in North Carolina for violating local Jim Crow laws regarding segregated seating on public transportation. The first Freedom Ride on May 4th in 1961 was led by Corps Director James Farmer. 13 young riders, 7 were black, 6 were white, including but not limited to John Lewis, Genevieve Hughes, Mae Frances Moultrie, Joseph Perkins, Charles Person, Ivor Moore, William E. Harbor, Joan Trumpauer Mullahand, and Ed Blankenheim. They left Washington, D.C. on Greyhound from the Greyhound Terminal and Trailway buses. Their plan was to ride through Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, ending in New Orleans, in Louisiana, where civil rights rallies were planned. Many of the riders were sponsored by CORE and SNCC, with 75% of the riders between 18 and 30 years old. A diverse group of volunteers came from 39 states and were from different economic classes and racial backgrounds. Most were college students and received training in nonviolent tactics. The Freedom Riders' tactics for their journey were to have at least one interracial pair sitting in adjoining seats, and at least one black rider sitting up front, where seats under segregation had been reserved for white customers by local custom throughout the South. The rest of the team would sit scattered throughout the rest of the bus. One rider would abide by the South segregation rules in order to avoid arrest and to contact CORE and arrange bail for those who were arrested. Only minor trouble was encountered in Virginia and North Carolina, but John Lewis was attacked in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Over 300 riders were arrested in Charlotte, North Carolina, Winnsboro, South Carolina, and Jackson, Mississippi. By September, it had been over 3 months since the filing of the petition by Robert Kennedy. CORE and SNCC leaders made tentative plans for a mass demonstration known as the Washington Project. This would mobilize hundreds, perhaps thousands of nonviolent demonstrators to the capital city to apply pressure on the ICC and the Kennedy administration. The idea was preempted when the ICC finally issued the necessary orders just before the end of the month. The new policies went into effect on November 1st, 1961, 6 years after the ruling in Syracuse versus Carolina Coach Company. After the new ICC rule took effect, passengers were permitted to sit wherever they pleased on the interstate buses and trains. White and colored signs were removed from the terminals. Racially segregated drinking fountains, toilets, and waiting rooms and serving interstate customers were all consolidated, and the lunch counters began serving all customers regardless of race. The widespread violence provoked by the Freedom Rides sent shockwaves through American society. People worried that rides were evoking widespread social disorder and racial divergence, an opinion supported and strengthened in many communities by the press. The press in white communities condemned the direct action approach that CORE was taking, while some of the national press negatively portrayed the riders as provoking unrest. At the same time, the Freedom Rides established great credibility with black and white people throughout the United States and inspired many to engage in direct action for civil rights. Perhaps most significantly, the actions of the Freedom Riders from the North who faced danger on behalf of Southern black citizens impressed and inspired many black people living in rural areas throughout the South. They formed the backbone of the wider civil rights movement, who engaged in voter registration and other activities. Southern black activists generally organized around their churches, the center of their communities, and a base of moral strength. Because of their effort and sacrifice, the Freedom Riders would help inspire participation in other subsequent civil rights campaigns, including voter registration throughout the South, freedom schools, and the Black Power movement. Welcome back to 28 Days of Color. Today is Color in Transportation. We're here with Alano McNeil to tell us about his experience as a flight attendant. How are you?
All is well. How are you?
Good, good. Staying in place, sheltering as much as I can.
Right. Oh, driving everybody crazy, being confined to one spot, you know. Now's the time when you have to learn to love the place you live in, because this is your everything.
It is. I've never spent so much time in this house, and it's been nice to get to know it, you know?
Okay. All the creaks and the cracks.
Exactly. Every single one.
Right.
So I want to ask you, how long were you a flight attendant, and what inspired you to pursue that career?
I was an international flight attendant for 4 years. We actually just got fired a few days ago. You know, so it sucks. We were furloughed. My last flight was in March of 2020. And then we were furloughed. So we waited that period out. And then it just came back because they are a European carrier and they were already having financial issues. So at that point, they were fighting. And then it just, you know, they had to give up. So they still operate a short haul, which is the domestic of Europe. But as far as transatlantic flights, it's done for now.
Oh.
So it's devastating, you know. It's like going from being a rock star to like begging for change. Like, oh. It's hard, but it was definitely a fun gig. I missed every bit of it. I was able to make on my layovers these videos that I tagged as hashtag Towelhead Chronicles, and that was just a way of bonding with other people, getting through the times, because you're there. We fly as a crew of 9 or 10, but in actuality, when you're in your room for hours or on a layover for hours, you're by yourself. So I came about this fun idea to create Towelhead Chronicles, and it just helps everybody get through their day. It's funny videos, all with a towel on my head, different songs and dances. So, you know, you have to make the most of it.
You know, I've seen those, and it gave me a laugh and a smile when I needed it. So appreciated more than even inside your industry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was the training process like for that, to get ready to be a flight attendant?
Oh, so it's 4 weeks of nonstop. We did 5 days a week. And then I think the last week we did 6 days, 6 days straight. But it's nonstop testing. Every week there's at least 3 to 4 tests. Some will be open book, but majority are, you know, straight out, multiple choice, fill in the blanks. What else? Then you do actual practicals. So you go down to Miami to the Pan Am Flight Center, and you get to touch all the different equipment. You learn how to put out a fire, put on a PBE, which is the smoke hood that you have to put on in order to put out a fire.
Right.
I didn't like that part. I'm very claustrophobic. So it was intense. You know, you get to know your real strengths and weaknesses very fast becoming a flight attendant in that training class.
I bet. And how is that, you know, being slightly claustrophobic and then being up in the air in that plane all day and all night?
So it's actually, I'm fine in the plane. The plane, we have a dual lane. So there's 3 seats, an aisle, 3 seats and another aisle, then 3 seats. So there's more than enough space in the cabin. It's just when you go upstairs, like we have these, the crew rest. So there's beds upstairs on the plane where we get to go and take our break, and you sleep up there. But it's literally like a small coffin that you're sleeping in. So it's that part is like, I have to keep all the air vents on me. I have to lay there, you know, have some warm water to soothe my soul because it can be very scary. There's times I woke up in a panic because I did not realize where I was, because I went into a deep sleep, and I wake up, it's really dark, and then the roof is right here over my face.
Woo!
So,
my
So I just tried not to scream on those times because, you know, everybody else is resting, you know, so they're in a deep sleep or whatever they're reading. Some people did yoga up there in the bigger beds. We had 2 that were bigger, so there was always a race to get upstairs. But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of space in there, and you meet tons of new people every flight.
Well, being a flight attendant isn't just in the sky. Tell me about the first place you got to travel to, or what was your favorite?
Ooh, first place out the gate was Paris. So I'm not a big fan of Paris at all. I'm not. It grew on me, but I'm still not a fan. My number 1 spot for hanging out would be Amsterdam in Germany, Berlin, Germany. And then for food-wise would be Greece. So we started flying into Athens, and it was just by far the best. So those are at the top of my list.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. I might miss a flight home.
You know, I tried.
Well, what's been the best part of what you do, the whole career of it?
The best part, I would say, learning different cultures and eating different cultural food, and just meeting thousands of strangers. I have friends all over the world now, and I can say that and like be like, yeah, you know, so if we did want to go to Germany, we can go and stay at Dennis' house. Or if we did want to go to Greece, my sister lives in Greece, her husband. So I can go there. So it's so many different things and places that come with the job. And you see actually a lot of the same passengers time after time. It's like, oh, you had a vegetarian meal, and out of Paris, actually, it was Paris to LA. There was a girl, she was a dancer, and she had a vegetarian meal. And I knew her face. We chatted a little bit on the plane, and I saw her multiple times. There was also a guy from Norway who lived in New York, and we would take him back and forth. And how I got to meet him the first time was one of the girls who was working the flight. He asked her on a date when we got to Norway, and she didn't want to go by herself. So we went, we partied. His definition of going out for drinks was to TGI Fridays in Norway. So, so we get down to the city, and I'm like, where are we going? He's like, oh, right here, the bar. I'm like, this is TGI Fridays. Is there something else? So eventually we left there, went around the corner, and we found a dance hall, a dance hall club. So we had a blast. And from that moment on, I've seen him all the time, back and forth. It's like, wow, it's such a big world, but such a small world at the same time.
I didn't think about that. You being able to bump into the same people. That's kind of cool.
Oh, yeah.
I wish I traveled enough for someone to recognize me on a plane. That's
it
a
happens.
Goal.
That's
a goal.
Get out there.
With all the things that you've seen and learned in your travels, why do you think it's important then for the Black community to get involved in travel?
I think it's very important for the Black community to travel because there's so much more culture and diversity out in the world that just sitting in your hometown, whether it be Atlanta, Colorado, California, the Bay Area, anywhere that you were born and raised, it's okay to venture out and know that there are people who look just like you in other countries. I didn't realize how many other Black males were in Germany. I met my friend. He's Black. He's a Black German. Both of his parents are German. His father is Black and his mother is white. But we met on social media. He's a DJ. So when I came to Germany for the first time, he allowed me to perform when he was DJing at a club. So that locked us in forever. I was able to go and just perform. These people didn't know me. We still had a good time. They still was dancing and vibing with me. So it's very important. There's so much culture that's outside of here. There's other music genres that you'll never, like Afro beats. That's a huge thing actually in Europe. Different dances, food, how people live. Like Amsterdam, the houses are very slanted. So instead of it being straight up and down, it's kind of like this. Some are like very wavy, because it's built on water. And so when the levels change, it's awesome. It is so awesome to see. Yes. Then you have different cheese factories there. I'm a cheese head. So in Paris was cheese and baguettes, and Amsterdam was nothing but straight cheese and French fries. And like their big thing is they have a lot of Dutch cheeses, as well as the fries with mayonnaise and ketchup and all the different fixings that they put on there.
Woo, I just hear keto just going out the window. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with this. Whatever's happening here, I need to be involved.
Right.
So what are some things that you like to do when you travel? I heard about the dance hall. What else do you do?
So I take dance classes actually in other countries. That's a big thing. My favorite so far has been in the UK. Okay. There's a dance studio called Pineapple Dance Studio down in the city center. And then in Amsterdam, there's a class that I take regularly when we were going. And I think it's Amsterdam Dance Center is the name of the venue. But yeah, the classes there are so awesome, and they teach in English, and they tell you on the website, because that was my fear. I'm like, are they only going to teach in Dutch? Like, I'm not sure. It said, if you speak English, we will teach the whole class in English so that you can follow along. The best time ever. There's no like, oh, step to the back, you don't understand it, or you're not picking it up fast enough. Everybody is doing their own thing. They're helping each other, laughing, high-fiving, and having a good time. So it's important, and I started off doing yoga classes in the UK just to see, finding something. And I also like getting my hair cut in other countries. Oh. And normally I cut my own hair. I stopped doing barbers years ago. It's been at least 8 to 9 years. And I started cutting my own, you know, but that was a big thing for me was let me experience this in another country. And the UK, I met a guy who was a barber there, and I was going to him nonstop. And like, even when I had the dreads, he would cut it, do it right. So those are things that are fun experiences in my world. You know, a lot of people like to go and just eat or just party. I like to do it all. Dance classes, food, haircuts, yoga. It's just so many things that you can do in other countries that we don't do here on a regular, that are, you know, we have access to. But a lot of people will not take a dance class here, but they have it over there and they'll take it there. Like people that I fly with, they're like, oh, what are you doing on the layover? I'm like, I'm going to the dance class at 7 p.m. Oh, I want to come. I've never danced before, but I want to, just like that. So
you're like a temporary resident.
Yeah, I try. I do. I go to the casino. In the UK and in Amsterdam, I go to the casino all the time. I win. Like I took my mom for her birthday to Amsterdam. She won 1,300 euros. So, you know, you got to get out there and experience it. If not, you'll never know.
In my family, we always say, we'll wait for the limo.
Yeah, okay.
We'll wait on the limo. So you were talking about kind of that warm environment in your dance class and how everyone was kind of a team together and cheering each other on. So what is the difference in the personalities that you sense between the US and abroad?
Europe is more welcoming and accepting of all levels of entertainment, dance, or whatever it is that you're doing, compared to when you go to a dance class and down in SoCal in LA, it's like everybody is an ex-dancer for Britney Spears or Beyonce. It's not a competition. This is just to brush up our tools and to have a good time, right, so that you can be ready for the next audition when it comes your way. So that's all. But over there, it's nothing but love. And here in the US, you go and it's like, I just wasted $25 because it's not fun. It's not.
Right. I think that needs to be an important part of dance. We've got to smile and mean it.
Right. It's fun. It should always be fun. It's not a competition.
I do miss seeing you dance back in school.
Somebody just called me yesterday and said, are you still doing cheerleading and dancing? I'm like, I still dance. I don't cheer, but it's still in there if you need me to pull it out.
Hey, it's always back there. You don't forget, like riding the bike. It comes back.
Yeah, always.
It comes back. But do you have any concerns or precautions that you take as, a Black person traveling? Do you have those things in the back of your mind? What do you think when you're traveling to someplace new?
I'm always aware. I like to look at what's in the neighborhood, but I'm always aware of my surroundings. Being that I am a Black male and an American in a foreign country, you become a target. So like Spain, a lot of people get pickpocketed there. So I'm just always aware, like I don't buy into the whole, oh my God, look at this. I'll take a picture, but you're not going to hear me like, oh my God, boom, you're a target. Yeah. And these are things that you have to be aware of when you are traveling. It's like, you don't put your wallet in your back pocket. You don't have big eyes. You take a few pictures, have a good time. It's okay to interact with other people, but you have to keep them at a distance, So, and even in the aviation world, being a person of color, it's very difficult because, like, for the company I worked for, we had a Black base chief. So this person was in charge of all the flight attendants at our base. And still couldn't identify with her because she was so wrapped up with trying to be one of them, and she wanted you, do this. So, oh, you're too loud. Oh, it's like, I'm loud because we shared a joke and we laughed. I don't get it. When you go to work in whatever profession it is, you're supposed to be able to have a good time.
Right.
And so we did have a lot of people of color who worked for that specific company, but they always try to water us down. And we were always titled as aggressive or loud or rude. I'm like, I don't see any of that. We're having a good time at work. We're not aggressive. It's because we're letting you know that we will not allow you to walk over us, or we will not allow you to, oh, go clean the bathrooms. You're not going to tell me to clean the bathrooms. Don't have me do something that you will not do.
Right.
You know, and there's a lot, we worked with a lot of racist people, which was very sad, you know, and they were still with the company even after they were reported several times over. And these were supervisors. Yes. These were supervisors. And at the time, there was a lot of people of color being promoted to supervisors and instructors. And there was a white male who was in line to be promoted, but they told him, you know, we're going to hold off on it. You got the position, but we're going to hold. There's a few other things we need to do before we move forward, XYZ. And his friend, which is a white supervisor, called him like, what's going on with your promotion? He said, oh, you know, it's on hold. They're going to give it to me, but we have to clear up X, Y, and Z first. I don't understand what the holdup is. There's all these monkeys being promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it was only people of color being promoted. And her statement, you know, he reported her as a, you know, a white person reporting another white person. He reported her, and it was like, oh, we'll speak to her. No, you don't need to speak to her. She needs to be taken out. She didn't, no longer, if she's a supervisor. Right. You don't need to be a part of a field like this if that's how you look at your colleagues.
Literally all over the world.
Right. Right. And then her claim to fame was, I'm not racist, I'm South African. They're the most racist. When you do your history, Sunshine, they are the most racist people out there. Just because you're white and from South Africa does not exclude you from being racist. When you're saying the N-word, when you're saying that, why are we promoting all of these monkeys? Is that supposed to be welcoming, uplifting, happy, fun times at work? Doesn't sound like it.
No, I agree.
You know, eventually she quit, but she should have been terminated. So those are the things you do face. And you face that in all professions, but because you don't see a lot of people of color in aviation, you know, and it's a hard field to get into. And like, I've interviewed with several different airlines, and when you look at the people who are doing the interviews, it's probably one person of color, maybe two, and that'll be a Black and a Spanish. And the rest is like all 60-year-old white women or white men. And it's like you try to interview with them and you're selling yourself. That's your selling point. Right. And you still get a no. But then you see the people when you fly with that company going on vacation, you're like, I didn't get the job. And I'm not saying this because of the color of my skin, but you hired her and she won't even give the lady over here a cup of water. You know, so it's those things. Yes, it's like service. Which is, it's so sad.
Well, with that being said, even on top of that, now with the pandemic, I mean, what are your thoughts on traveling during this pandemic? If your company was still open and employing you, would you be okay?
I would be okay. Like I was still flying in the beginning of it, and we weren't wearing masks. We weren't allowed to wear masks, but I do believe we know that the virus is real. You know, I'm not saying that it's not, but it's also your self-care, your hygiene your regimens that you do at home and on the go. If you're using the bathroom and walking right out, you miss so many steps, so many steps, you know, and a lot of people do it regularly. Not even flushing the toilet, you just walked out. Not washing your hands, you just walked out. These are things that create bacteria all over the place. And then you want to shake someone's hand. Don't shake my hand. I'm not available for that, you know? So I just think that it's really how people live. And if you already have these underlying health conditions, it's worse for you. So, you know, I still would travel. It's a source of income. Usually I wouldn't. Work-wise, I would. But, you know, and I feel like the world, we need to just shut down for 30 days altogether. Not going to the grocery store, not going to, you know, the vending machine, not shut it down. You know, if we won't get anywhere if we keep saying, oh, we're going to close it. You know, you have to be in your house from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Well, I didn't see anywhere that the virus said, I'm coming out by 9:30, I'm coming. So I'm trying to figure out what's the logic behind saying 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. you can't be on the streets or you're getting a fine. Well, people are still going to work or coming home from work at that time. Why are we getting a fine at this time of night? Why do we have to be confined to our house? You should have been at home anyway if you're a part of the working world from 9 at night to 5 in the morning. Should have been resting, prepping for tomorrow. Right. So these, it just didn't make sense when they came up with these curfews.
Right. It's a little tricky to navigate. And, even now it's kind of like, I don't even leave the house to just DoorDash or Instacart,
Mm-hmm.
And even for those people who are doing that to keep me home, it's like,
right.
How do we balance that? There's still this challenge of keeping everybody in one place,
Mm-hmm.
So, and with that, I mean, even for us as Americans, we were banned from traveling to a lot of other places.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, as a person who gets to travel and knows what's on the other side of these flights, how do you feel when we were just completely banned from going anywhere as a country?
I feel like it should have just been for everyone. Europeans can't come here. People from Asia can't come here. Americans can't go there. Just shut it down completely. But it was still confusing. I was in the mix up of that. So one of my last flights is when the former president was saying, oh, we're closing the border. You can only come through the UK. And I was on my way out to Norway. So it was like, well, how are we going to get home if we're operating to Norway, not to the UK? So we were able to call scheduling and ask them, when we land in Norway, can we get a flight straight over to the UK, straight home? So for 24 hours, basically, I was wide awake because I flew out that night, landed in Norway, took a flight an hour later over to the UK. 2 hours later from that, took a flight back to the US, just to make sure we got home before they called it quits on everything. So it was a bit scary. It was.
What would you have done if they shut it down? You would just be stuck abroad?
But legally, they would have had to put us in a hotel, and you would have still had to pay us, still had to get us food every day until we were able to come back. So I think that's why they were so willing to say, we'll send you right away, because normally they try to avoid, land, and then we'll send you somewhere else unless they want to do it. But when you bring something up to them of that nature, no, we don't do that. Or, you have to stay in the hotel for a minimum of so-and-so time. And it's not true, because there's times when we land in Norway and you make us take a small flight going over to Copenhagen or going over to Paris to work a flight the next day from Paris to LA. So, there's those things.
That is just dizzying.
Right.
Trying to figure out.
Absolutely.
I mean, and I don't know that I would have been, if I had my family with me and my children, I might have been like, okay, we'll just stay. Just wait this one out. See you in January.
Right.
So if there's anyone out there, when the pandemic frees us, that wants to get into being a flight attendant and start that career, what would you have advice for? You have been through so many different experiences at this point.
All in 4 years. I would say in the interview, everybody wants to know, like, oh, how do you get in? So for European carriers, you have to know how to swim. So at the interview, there's a swim test. Yes, and I think it's 200 meters they make you swim, something like that. And it's there and back in an Olympic-sized pool. So there's no stopping, there's no catching your breath, touching the ground, the rope, or the wall. You have to go straight there and back, no stopping. And if you can't do that, there's no need to even get dressed for the interview part, because if you fail the test, there's no need to speak, For American carriers, they don't make you do that. You do some water drills during training, but for the interview portion, there's no swim test. Always be yourself.
Yeah.
Never change that for anyone else or for any job. But the key things that they're looking for is safety and customer service. Are you going to be able to spot if somebody is smoking, if somebody is having a stroke? And they teach you these things in training, but to go prepared to an interview for aviation, they want to know, so, why do you want to work here? Because I'm big on customer service. I love to go above and beyond. Safety is a main priority, especially in a profession of this nature. You want to make sure that you can provide safety for everyone in here. You know how to put on the oxygen mask, CPR, a list of first aid behaviors that will get someone to the next stop in case we have to land.
Right, right. Are you looking forward to getting back into the field when things clear up?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I might go private. I have a friend who does private charter, so there's a course that you pay to take, and I think it's about 3 to 5 days, and you get certified, and then start putting your resume out there and see what happens.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that you still want to do it. It sounds exciting, and I hope to bump into you on one of these adventures. See what you've seen.
Okay.
I appreciate you being here so much. I appreciate this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I think I'm learning things just like our viewers are. So it's something for all of us today. And if anything, it's made me want to get out even more.
I know. Soon. I'm hoping by summertime things clear up and we're able to get back out in the skies and go where we want.
Right. That's a tough one.
See.
I wish you all the best, and I look forward to seeing what Childhood Chronicles.
I'm gonna do some in my house. When I get some downtime, I'll do some.
There we go.
Yes, indeed.
It was so good to see you.
Good to see you as well. Tell everyone I said hello.
Will do.
All righty. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Finishing off another episode, this episode of Transportation, we're going to read about Little People, Big Dreams, Rosa Parks' story. This is written by Elizabeth Kaiser and illustrated by Martha Antello. This story goes from Rosa Parks' childhood all the way through her adult life into the incident on that bus that made her famous. Take care. Little People, Big Dreams, Rosa Parks. Rosa grew up near Montgomery, Alabama, with her mother, brother, and grandparents. She was very little and very brave, and she always tried to do what was right. When she was young, Rosa's grandparents told her stories about slavery when Black people weren't free to live like other people. Slavery was over, but times were still hard for Rosa and her family. Black people were treated very badly and told they were not equal to white people. Every day, Rosa watched the school bus go by, taking white children to their big school. It didn't stop for her. She had to walk a long way to the one-room school that was just for Black children. Rosa knew this wasn't right. She knew she was a regular person, just as good as anybody else. Lots of times she had to make sure other people knew it too. When Rosa grew up and got a job in the city, she couldn't use the same doors, elevators, bathrooms, or water fountains as white people. She could ride the bus, but she had to sit in the back. Her life was full of rules that she knew weren't right. Rosa fell in love with a man named Raymond, who was trying to change the rules to be more fair and equal. Soon Rosa started working too, trying to get more rights for Black people and help for those who were treated badly. She worked day after day, even when it seemed like nothing would ever change. On her way home from the city one day, a bus driver told Rosa to stand up so a white person could take her seat. She was sick of rules that she knew were wrong. She thought, enough. She said no. Rosa was taken to jail. She wasn't scared because she knew that what she was fighting for was right. When Rosa came home that night, she talked with her friends and family about what to do. She decided to keep fighting, no matter how hard it would be. Black people all over the city heard what happened to Rosa. They thought, enough. Rosa inspired them to stop riding the buses until the rules were changed. So they walked to school and to work and to the store in all kinds of weather. Rosa traveled the country from New York to San Francisco to convince other people to join the fight. Finally, after 1 year, the Supreme Court decided that treating black people differently from white people on buses was wrong. The rules were going to change. It was no longer safe for Rosa to live in Alabama. She moved to Detroit and fought for fair schools, jobs, and houses for black people. She fought for voting rights, women's rights, and the rights of people in prison. When Rosa was an older woman, she was given awards and told she was a hero, but she knew who she was, a regular person, just as good as anyone else, and she had work to do. The end.
One more again. Mas não. Mas não. Mas não. Caviar. Espesso. Caviar. Espesso. Caviar. Espesso. A gente. A gente.